Hello everyone, and welcome back to this month's Meet the Musicians segment with the Crosse Symphony Orchestra. My name is Josh Baker and I play clarinet with the LSO. This month's theme, March, is being a musician and what it's like to lead the life of a musician. And since my career is fairly short compared to those of my colleagues in the La Crosse Symphony, I wanted to talk about what my experience was of going through college trying to be a musician, and hopefully some of the things that I've learned in that process that I try to continue to improve on a daily basis. I do not come from a musical family, actually. My dad is an engineer. He has been for almost 40 years, and he teaches here in La Crosse at the train company. And he can play some blues chords on his guitar. He was actually part of a band back when he was my age. My mom has a degree in chemistry, and she since teaches at my middle school that I came from, West Salem Middle School, and she works as a paraprofessional there. My mom, funny enough, actually played the French horn in the La Crosse Youth Symphony here in town back when Mr. Frank Italiano was the director of that group. So like I said, you don't need to come from a musical family in order to become a musician or simply want to be a musician. When I came to the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse here in town, one of the very first things I learned very, very quickly was a lesson in humility. I will be as honest as anyone. When I was coming out of high school, I really thought I was one of the coolest things since sliced bread. And college, at least when you're being a musician, can knock you down a few pegs. And it's not there to be a deterrent, but rather to be a motivator. I think I was taught very early on that I needed to, number one, learn how to practice effectively. I needed to learn how to work with others effectively, how to rehearse in small groups and large groups. And I had to kind of come to grips with where my skills were as a college musician. I had to be very, very honest with where I was in my personal growth. Following on that wavelength of teamwork, I really enjoyed learning about it in college. It was probably my favorite topic to work on. Chamber music has probably been my favorite thing to play. But I learned how to play in duets and trios and in quintets and in our university symphony orchestra at our wind ensemble. Those were usually my favorite hours of the day, or when I was able to work with other people. And I think it's that electrifying to me because I was able to present something, make a musical product that I couldn't make by myself. I had to join with other people and learn how to play with other people and appreciate what they brought to the table so that we could create a new musical product that I had never heard or seen before. A final aspect about being a college musician that I found really interesting was how much other classes seemed to take hold in the outlook of my own career. So I took a lot of sociology and women's studies courses at the end of my college career. Those classes really opened my eyes to a great deal of discrimination and underrepresentation in our country and in our world. And I think that the way that I approach those ideas in my field are by trying to bring attention to music that is being written today. So much of our history is dominated by these greats like Beethoven and Mozart and Brahms, etc., that I think we forget to pay a little bit closer attention to music being written by underrepresented composers of our time and simply new music in general. I'm on the board of the newly formed Driftless Urban Orchestra here in La Crosse that serves the tri-state region, and it's under the direction of Dr. Cullen Lucas. And our mission statement is to shine a spotlight on underrepresented and minority composers, not only in our country, but in our world. All of this is to say that being a college musician is an incredibly enriching experience. But I want to come back to a point that I made in a previous segment a few months ago, and that is that you do not need a degree or a fancy instrument or a prestigious background in order to be a musician. I play with the La Crosse concert band here in town in the summers, and we still have people, I have people in the clarinet section that have been playing for 40 years or so, that are in their 60s and 70s, and they still get a great amount of enjoyment out of being there once a week and making music with friends that they may not otherwise see. I really appreciated what our principal oboist, Mary Beth Hensel, said in her segment for this month, which was when she thought about being a musician and what it means for her to be a musician, she thought about relationships. And I really appreciate that she mentioned that, because I couldn't agree with her more. Most of my fondest relationships that I have today are because of music. No matter whether we're in college to be a musician or whether we're a few more years down the line and we just enjoy singing or playing for fun. I think the reason why we do it is so that we can have relationships with others. I want to thank you once again for joining me for this month's Meet the Musicians segment. Even in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, the La Crosse Symphony is continuing to play at the Viterbo Fine Arts Center. So if you're interested in looking for concert tickets or concert information, please visit lacrossesymphony.org.